Hey everybody, and welcome to another Spark how-to video. In this video we're going to be talking today about information that's available to you, to everyone, about NDIS prices. This is really important information because it can have a big bearing on how you use the funding in an NDIS plan to get the outcomes and the results that you're looking for with your support services. There are two main sources of information here for NDIS participants, people with an NDIS plan, and also carers, providers, support workers. So this is the first one here. This is the National Disability Insurance Scheme Pricing Arrangements and Price Limits document. Okay, now the NDIA updates this at least once a year. Generally it gets done at the end of the financial year in June, but it also sometimes happens during the year as well. Excuse my voice today. Now in this document there is a lot of information about all different kinds of support services that people might choose to engage through their plan. There is information around how managing your plan affects whether these price limits apply to you. There is also information, for example, around short notice cancellations and how the NDIS prices apply in a situation where, say, an NDIS participant has to cancel a shift with their support worker at very short notice for whatever reason. Maybe someone's sick or they have something else that clashes with that shift. What happens in that situation? Does the support worker, does the provider have the right to claim for the cost of the shift, even though it hasn't been provided? There's information around transport and transport assistance. There's different prices for example, if you live in a remote or very remote area. There's information about how the prices, the NDIS prices, change according to where you live and perhaps the availability of services in those areas. There's information here about if you want to arrange a shadow shift with a worker, so that say you're thinking of bringing on board a new worker, you might choose to have that new worker just follow along with one of your more established workers who knows you well, so that they get a feel for what's required in the job and how that can be done. And then there is information about the prices in specific categories of service within a plan. So for example, here you've got core or services that come from your core support budget in your plan, and this is the category assistance with daily life. These are all support services that might come from someone's core support budget. More information about transport, for example, consumables, so that might be small items of assistive equipment. It might be continence pads if someone requires that. It might be specialized feeding equipment, excuse me, those kind of things. And then the last category in the core budget is assistance with social, economic and community participation. So here you've got information about the prices relating to services, or the prices that get applied to services to help people to access the community and do the things that they want to do, whether that's work, whether that's follow an interest or be part of a group. Then there's information about capital supports, so assistive technology and perhaps home modifications, specialist disability accommodation, the prices that apply to those services. And then you've got the capacity building categories as well. So support coordination, improved living arrangements for people who maybe require support to maintain the place that they live, to hold or keep a tenancy going if they're living in a private rental home, for example. Increase social and community participation to help people to develop their ability to be involved in activities that they would like to do. And finding and keeping a job, so to help people who are looking for employment and looking to explore the options that might be available to them, for example. Improve relationships, so this is a category for people who require perhaps behaviour support. Improved health and well-being, improved learning, improved life choices. So improved life choices is the category that covers plan management in people's plans, if someone has requested that way to manage their funding. And then improved daily living, which is the general allied health funding category. I guess that's perhaps the simplest way to understand it. So you've got information there about support services for children who are under the age of 7, and then therapy supports for people who are 7 years of age or older. So as you can see, it goes to 100 pages. This is a very long document. It's not the kind of thing that I would suggest, or that anyone would suggest, I imagine, that you read from start to finish. But it is a useful guide just to dip into. So let's do that now. Let's just very quickly, I just want to show you what it looks like. Let's say, for example, we're looking for information about allied health supports, and you wanted to know what the price limit was for, say, a psychology service. So we would go down to capacity building, improved daily living, because that's psychology being an allied health therapy service. And we go find therapy supports for people 7 years or older, because I'm well over the age of 7. And we go down to page 92. And here we are at page 92. Now, depending on what your question is, you could choose to read through all of this. I'm not going to read through all of this right now. It's quite dense. What I'm looking for is just the price for the standard price that the NDIA expects psychologists to charge as a guide for their services. So if we come down the bottom here, you'll see that there are a whole lot of different kinds of therapists here. So for example, we've got art therapy, audiology for people with hearing loss, counsellor, developmental educator, dietitian, exercise physiologist, and over here you see this is an hourly price for all of these therapies, and here is the price depending on where you are in Australia. So this first column applies to New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland and the ACT. Second column applies to Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania and the Northern Territory. And then you've got two final prices for people living in remote and very remote areas. Now we're looking for psychology, so I'm going to go down to the next page because it's not there. Exercise physiology, music therapy, occupational therapy, orthoptist, physiotherapist, podiatrist, psychologist. Here we go. As you can see, again, it's an hourly price. I'm in Victoria, so I'm going to look at the first column, and I can see that the NDIA has set the standard price for psychology at $214 an hour. Now, it's important to know or to understand that this price is just a guide. The NDIA doesn't tell providers what they have to charge. The NDIA tells providers what they can charge, what they'll allow providers to charge, and then it's up to the participant and the provider to work out what price the participant is actually going to pay for the service. So it's always worth asking when you're setting up a service exactly what the hourly rate is, and seeing how a provider's hourly rate compares to the NDIS standard price, particularly if you're agency managing your funding or plan managing your funding. Okay. All right, so that is just a very quick snapshot of the NDIS Pricing Arrangements document. What I want to do now is also just very quickly show you the other main document that provides information around the NDIS prices, and that is the NDIS Support Catalogue. So I'm going to switch over to that now, and we'll have a quick look at that as well. Here we have the NDIS Support Catalogue. Now, at first glance, it may look a bit daunting. There's an awful lot of information here. It's very dense. Making sense of it might seem a little tricky, okay? But over time, if you stick with it and you work with it a little bit, you get to know it a little bit, over time it can become a lot more familiar, and then it becomes a very useful reference point for checking prices for particular items. It's also a very useful guide working hand in hand with the pricing arrangements document to help you when you're planning out services and figuring out how much you can afford to pay for services through your plan, and what providers can and perhaps should be charging for their services as well. So, like I say, it's a very useful reference point. This is what the support catalogue looks like when you first download it from the NDIS website. So, say for example, I wanted to compare prices between having one-to-one support from a support worker to go out in the community to go shopping, for example, and the price for being part of a group, a social group activity, where I was developing my skills to do, perhaps to go shopping as part of that group. Okay, so what we would do is we come over here. I'm going to search by the name, by the support item name, because that's, I guess, over time I've become familiar with that. Okay, but these arrows here allow us actually to filter the results in the spreadsheet. Okay, so which means that we don't have to scroll our way down through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of results. What we can actually do, I'll go back to the top, what we can actually do is we can filter those results to look for the exact thing that we want. So I'm going to come down here and click on that arrow. So the one-to-one support service to get out in the community. First of all, I've got to clear the selection for all of these. And then what I'm looking for is access community social and recreation activities. That's a one-to-one support service. And let's say, for example, that I'm going shopping during the week, so between Monday to Friday in the daytime. So I'm going to click this box here, and I'm going to click OK. And then that gets rid of all those hundreds of records and just brings up this one. And what that gives us, so we have the support item name, it's the NDIA description of the service. Each support item sits in a support category. And then if we move across, we have the unit. So this price item is charged by the hour. That's what the H stands for. Is it quotable? So does the provider need to provide a quote before they charge for it? No, they don't. Okay, the NDIA has said no, they don't need to provide a quote. It's just charged by the hour. And then you've got the price for each state and territory in Australia. So again, I'm in Victoria, so I'm going to be looking at the Victorian price, which is $62.17 per hour. Now, the same as the price for psychology that we were looking at earlier in the video, it's just a guide. The NDIA doesn't say that providers have to charge that price. It's up to the provider and the participant to work out what price is actually going to be paid for the service. It may be that you're able to negotiate with a support worker or a provider that rather than paying the $62 an hour, you may end up paying $50 or $55, which doesn't sound like a huge difference perhaps, but over the course of your plan, which might be a 2-year plan or perhaps even a 3-year plan, that can add up, and it can actually, the funding that you're saving for your plan may actually allow you to find other supports to do things that perhaps in addition to the things that you wanted to do at the time that you put your plan together. So it can make a difference paying less than the NDIA standard price, and it opens up more options for you. Going back to what I was talking about, in comparing the one-to-one support price, which is this $62.17, with the group, the cost of a group activity. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the group activities price in there so that we can compare the two side by side. So you can see here we've already got access, community, social and recreational activities, standard, weekday, daytime, that's selected. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to search for, let's say for example in this group that the ratio of support workers to participants was one support worker for every 3 participants. Okay, so I'm going to put in 1 to 3, and here we go. We've got group activities, and these are all the different price items for group activities that happen with that 1 to 3 ratio. Okay, now I'm going to clear these search results first. I'm going to click this one. This is really important if you want to compare the two, is you need to make sure that add current selection to filter is clicked. Okay, because what that will do is then any price items that I select down here now will be added to the search results along with that one-to-one support price item, so that then I can compare the two sitting side by side. So we're looking for, let's say, group activities in the community. So I go down here and we're looking for 1 to 3 standard level of support. So there's information again about that in the NDIS Pricing Arrangements document, what constitutes high intensity support and what constitutes standard support. And then we're talking about weekday daytime again, so let's make sure that we click that one. And when I hit OK, there it is. So we've got it there next to that. Okay, so then we can go across here. We've got the one-to-one support item is the top one there, and the 1 to 3, the group activities, is below. So if we come across here, we'll see that there's a fair difference in price there. So the one-to-one support, the standard price is $62 an hour. The group activities at 1 to 3 is $25, almost $26 an hour. This is an example of how the NDIS Support Catalogue can be used to plan out your services. Thanks for watching. I hope this video has been useful to you. Keep an eye out for our other videos around where you can find the NDIS Pricing Arrangements document and the NDIS Support Catalogue. And click subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get the latest updates whenever we post a new video. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.